Guys, welcome back to another episode of House Rules Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Getlin.
I'm your other host, Rachel LaForce.
What's that funny face you're making?
That was just, you came out the gate hot.
Yeah, my mic's a little, I think I turned up the headphone volume.
No, I feel like your mic is fine.
Mic's good.
It was more just a comment on you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm scraping together my energy today.
You're going to do great.
Yeah, and we got Tony, our engineer, back with us per usual. So, real quick, guys. Rachel and I, if you don't know, if you just stumbled onto this podcast for the first time, we are comedians. We are engaged. We do this every week. We are streaming live from our studio right here. Well, from Third Wheel Podcast Studio, I should say. I'm going to go ahead and do all the proper sharing stuff while we're getting set up. So yeah, we are. This is our weekly podcast. We stream it live every Monday at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. We appreciate you guys watching. If you want to hop over to Skewed Orbit on Facebook or Instagram, that is, and YouTube. That's our page where we do all this stuff. Anyway, enough of the intro stuff. You guys get it. You know what to do. If you're listening, you're familiar with us. But so Tony. So last week, Rachel told us all, regaled us with the tales of Zac Efron.
Teen heartthrob Zac Efron saving the planet.
So I still haven't seen the show, but what are your thoughts on it?
I think Rachel might be biased to us, just because he's eye candy for the lady folk. So some of the stuff that I think, like, you know, I think like most guys stereotypically with like a cute blonde, we're like, oh, she doesn't matter what she's saying, you know, she's pretty.
Sure.
It's like that, where there's some stuff I'm like, because his little commentary and his, like, you know, when they're cutting from scene to scene.
Oh, the VO.
Yeah,
the VO is terrible.
And I'm like, dude, you're like an actor, like, and clearly not a writer. And I don't know if he's doing some of that, but it's just kind of like.
No, I literally almost tweeted at Netflix to be like, I don't know who's writing the VO on here, because it's supposed to be like cheeky. Like that when they go to make chocolate. I don't
By
know
the way,
one.
you guys watching live, I'm looking at the comments. So if anybody's seen the Zac, what's it called? What's Zac Efron?
Down to Earth.
So if anybody's seen Down to Earth, let us know your thoughts. How you feel about the show. I have not watched it yet.
Well, hold on. He was still telling me about it.
I know.
Well,
sorry. Yeah.
and it's funny you brought up the chocolate episode because, like, did you see how embarrassed he was with his concoction? It was like this weird thing because, again, he's a pretty good actor. Like, is not my guy, but he's got a good voice. He's coordinated. You know, like he's a triple threat, as they would say back in the day. Not a chocolatier though.
Not a chocolatier.
What makes one a chocolatier?
Well, they have some special guy there because they're in like Iceland, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a fascinating episode. I was like taken aback by a lot of it. I think it's cool that the guy that's his mentor is like just a giant like hippie kid.
Yeah.
Like he's basically a big Zac Efron. Alex, have you seen any of it?
No, I haven't. I'm not against it. I just haven't. I don't know. Listen, I love Rachel more than anything. But sometimes when she's gushing all over a new thing that she's into, I'm like, all right, I'm going to let this simmer down and then I'll circle back to it. Because she's on, you know, and I get it. I love what you're doing, but you're on Instagram and you're like, okay, friends. So Zac Efron, what do we think? And it's just like, I hear about it so much, I don't even want to watch the thing anymore. It's great. I'm not, you have that thing. I'm just, you know.
With the visuals.
Sure,
though,
what I'm hearing is you're jealous that I'm so rooted in my opinions.
Tony, okay, let's hear more about Tony's take.
Okay, but again, taking all that aside, it's visually stimulating. They're in crazy cool places. You're learning a lot of stuff too, like the water test they did with you know, what's her face?
Anna Kendrick.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff that's like they're takeaways, but it's packaged in like, you know, teen heartthrob, Tiger Beat, you know, poster model.
Well, I feel like I would get frustrated looking at all the places because it's like, who knows if we'll ever be able to travel there.
That's so funny that you say that because, oh gosh, so many things to say. No, I completely agree.
We've got an hour, so.
Ooh, pop. I would say,
okay.
no, I completely agree. I think that
my dad said agreed the VO is thumbs down.
The VO is so
Shout
bad.
out to Bob Getlin for watching.
I legit, hi Bob. I legit was going to reach out to them to be like, I'm happy to work for you for free. This VO is so bad.
It's like cheesy or what?
It's really cheesy, and I think it's meant to be like tongue in cheek, but like it's so bad. It's also weird because it's not in step with like the tone of the show, so it takes you out of it because it's like we could have just had him say like honest things. Like we could have been like watched the scene and then written like 3 lines of dialogue for him to write based off of what we just saw and then intercut it.
Okay.
So anyway, that was really bad. But I would say that like, yes, certainly I am smitten with his just looks. But what I really liked about the show was everything you're talking about. I learned so much in that show. And I think it really gave me that travel bug of like in years past was able to either through work or through trips or whatever have been able to get out of the country about once a year.
Oh, really?
And
yeah, last year we went to Brazil for my brother's wedding.
Nice.
yeah. And then this year we were supposed to go to Bali for our honeymoon, but
Well,
that's not going to happen.
So what's the coolest place you guys have been to separately or together? Like,
well, together Rio for sure.
yeah.
That's the only place we've really traveled to outside of like the U.S. together. Separately, went to Prague once. That was pretty cool. But you know, a lot of I haven't done a lot of traveling as like a real adult. Like I traveled a bit when I was 18 and very young to Israel and Prague, and so like it was great. But I was so young, I didn't appreciate it. I just wanted to party.
Yeah.
Whereas like now, as a 32-year-old man, there's so much more about like experiencing now like when I was 18 and I was going out in Tel Aviv, I just wanted to drink and hit on girls. You know what I mean? Like I didn't
Which is,
appreciate the culture. I mean, I did to an extent.
So lovely that like you could have done that in Jersey. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
out of all the places, and it's like, yeah, tonight we're getting chicks.
But yeah, that's exactly
like in the Holy Land.
verbatim what me and my buddies would say. Yeah,
Yeah, I've met them.
They're gonna be kosher. Now the ones you've met were none of my friends from Israel. But listen, you know, but okay, enough. But you know, I'm an adult now, and so all I'm saying is, when you know life, I wouldn't say when life. I was gonna say when life goes back to normal, but when we're able to kind of travel more freely and things kind of calm down with all this, I know Rachel and I have a lot of places we'd love to go together. The issue, not even the issue, but the reality for us is that you know our window of when we want to start becoming parents is pretty encroaching. So it might be one of those things where, you know, maybe when they're a little older, they stay with grandma and grandpa and we travel a bit. Or I mean, who knows with all the different projects we're working on, and like it would be what I would love. Rachel has this character she does, Tracy, and I would love to do a travel show with, you know.
Yeah, that's my dream because traveling's great, but it's also like super expensive. To answer your first question, I would say that Italy is still my favorite, although I was absolutely taken with Rio. Like I had no idea.
You never been to Rio, have you?
I've never been to either of those.
Yeah, so my sister-in-law is from Rio.
Okay.
And I had never, well, South America in general, I would love to explore more. So I went to Chile for work 2 years prior, and that was incredible. But I was there mostly for work, and I only had like 2 free days. And it's not super safe to be there by yourself, specifically as an American and definitely as a woman. So like, I mean, I've done a fair amount of traveling, but I'm still not like gonna try to, you know, risk being robbed or worse.
Yeah, definitely.
But I was able to get like a lot of city stuff done because it's still like, you know, used to being in New York or LA.
You're talking
like,
about when you were in
Chile.
In Chile, yeah.
So like I'm always looking over my shoulder. I'm always kind of like doing the, you know, the 6 and 9s. Like I'm aware. But yeah, South America is just like the vibe there is really beautiful. The landscape is just incredible. The food is really good. But yeah, Brazil was really cool. But certainly
the topography and geography of Rio it's like paradise. I mean, just purely how like there's all these incredible mountains that come out of the water, and this so lush and green, and this everything about that is incredible. And there's a lot of beautiful culture there, of course. But unfortunately, the government there's very corrupt, and there's this. And our tour guide who's from Brazil told us all about this in more of a detailed historical form, but. Their government over the past couple decades have really kind of screwed the pooch on a lot of things where they could have been this.
What a bizarre term.
I know.
To choose when talking about like government destruction.
But like, you know, just an example how they had the Olympics there recently, and the hotel we were at was near the Olympics, and I don't know the exact nuances, but it sounded like a situation where like the way that they decided where to put the arenas and who got to build them was like lining the pockets of people who were owed favors, and not really the way that was. It's
basically
most
like
practical.
We do it in America. We're just better at hiding it.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's basically the idea. But in Italy it was the one place that I went and everything was exactly how I had dreamt that it would be. Yeah. And it was interesting because I was there for work at the time as well. And one of the women that I was working with, and her dream was like Paris. Like that's what, and Paris is lovely. I think I'd really like to go back to France.
Were you there when they had the free water?
No.
Wait, free water? What?
Well, you got to walk.
Zac Efron show, yeah.
There you
go.
go.
Sorry, okay.
That's the end of that segment. But yeah, you gotta check it out.
Your wife is from Belize, right?
Yeah, she's Belizean born. I've not gone back with them.
Okay.
Their family's all from.
You got to take your son.
Of course.
Yeah, when he's older.
Yeah.
But that'd be kind of a cool family trip, right?
Absolutely.
Like this is 50% of your heritage.
Because you don't want to go to Germany.
Is that where your ancestors are from?
Germany and Croatia. So we went to Croatia for our honeymoon.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Nice.
That's a beautiful place too. And talking about topography and like geography, I think anything outside of the U.S., out of your norm, is amazing.
Yeah.
Because you're right on the Adriatic, coast there.
Totally.
And we went all the cities. We took like a jet boat ferry up the coast, which is like the bluest water you'll ever see. There's old forts. That's where they shot Game of Thrones. It was dope. Like
nice.
We did what you should do on your honeymoon and got drunk and then lost in like an old city because we were staying in an Airbnb.
I love it.
Fort. Yeah.
Well, you don't drink. We could take some edibles.
Get some edibles.
I mean, also, I'm so ADD, though. Half the time it feels like being drunk. You know what I mean?
No,
like, I'm just like, wait, what are we doing? I don't know. Let's go.
Even with you, even if it's like a strong CBD like droplet, you could be like, woo.
Yeah, it doesn't take much these days.
But so I want to talk about another thing I've been doing. Something, you're always about like wellness and kind of just getting centered these days, what you can do to lower your anxiety, all great stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, because we're in a pandemic.
Right. I think it's great. And I've taken a lot of both you and my brother and Scott's friend William, who's a good friend of ours. All three of you guys have told me that like I've been a little too fixated on like paying attention to like the chaos in the world. And like, even though I do like researching it for podcast topics and whatever, it's sometimes it's a little much. So I started doing. Wait, what were we gonna say?
I was just gonna say, because I think your dad is still watching. But where I told you that recently, where I was like, I think this was this weird thing, because so when Alex was where we were like 8 or something, and you would go into the back of like their house. They lived in Virginia, so it's like quite woodsy, and would basically make like kind of like haunted houses for himself out of like sticks and stuff. Like he loved Halloween masks.
I was super into goblins and monsters.
So there's still that that's like the little boy version of what he does now with his smartphone, of just like this like constant like just taking
scaring
in
yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's this weird thing.
It's a bit of that. I also listen, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but I do enjoy kind of playing the rabbit hole game of like,
of course.
in a crazy thriller movie of life, what could like, oh my God, what if China is trying to invade the U.S. via TikTok and like use our political parties to overthrow us? It's like, and obviously I know that like it would never be that simple. And even if that is maybe happening in a way, it's.
But what if it is that?
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like there's like the Illuminati and all that nonsense, But anyway, my point was, admittedly, I was spending a little bit too much time on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I would see all these posts from people that would just like trigger me in different ways for whatever reasons. And I was like, I don't want to see, like, that's annoying me, because I like Facebook a lot for two main reasons. Keeping up with like friends and family, like if a friend has a kid and their kid's something cute, or a relative is like, oh, I just finished this new grad school program. Like that, I like that part. Yeah. And I follow a lot of different various news articles, some politicized, some just science news, and just like cool like things, right? So what I've started doing is I've gone through every single person on my Facebook and unfollowed them. So I stay friends. I'm friends with them. I can see their page if I go out of the way. If I'm like, hey, what's Tony up to? I'm going to specifically go to your page and like kind of quote unquote check in on what's going on. But it doesn't pop up in my news feed. So I know this is ironic because I'm sharing this on Facebook right now. So here's the thing though, it's like, I think it's a healthy medium. Like I even unfollowed you on Facebook. We're still friends.
That's what I was checking, but okay.
No.
Well,
Well, first of all, I live with you. I see you every day. But my point is, it honestly has really lowered the amount of times in a day I'm like, what's going on? This person, that person, because I just, it's such an unhealthy way to communicate.
Yeah.
And I certainly am like, hey, your Facebook wall is your wall. Share what you want to share, post what you want to post. But I was just catching like two things were happening. One, I would see things that I didn't like seeing and it would like trigger me. And I just, didn't want to have that like invading my brain. But also like I posted a few things and people who didn't like I shared some links to some other articles and podcasts that I liked. And people who had opposing views of that were like commenting on the bottom, which is totally cool. But like my attitude, if I'm never going to argue with someone, I'm never going to debate with someone over a Facebook thread, right? If I share something and someone doesn't like it, I would love to just DM them and be like, hey, I'm really curious about your point of view on this. I don't really want to do this over text because there's so much nuance lost. But if you have like 5 minutes to tell me your point of view, I'd love to do like a FaceTime real quick. No one, I don't think, would do that. But I think that's such a healthier way to actually like share ideas than being like a smug, like, well, actually, your article is inaccurate. And it's like, that might be true. I'm totally
it's not
open
even
to
about
that.
healthy. It's the fact that like you're not going to change anyone's mind in a Facebook thread. If somebody has the awareness where they're coming at you about and not you as a universal you, and they're coming at you about something that you posted, they're already letting you know that there's no changing their mind. Because most people, like a normal healthy person, would go through something and see like, oh, I disagree with that. Even if I'm like, oh, I vehemently disagree with that. Or worse, like this article's actually from 2017 and this person didn't even read it and they posted it, right? But a normal person just keeps it moving. Like,
I agree with you 90% of the time. There have been, so I'll give you one example that happened because I love getting like, if I change my mind, it means I learned something, and I love like learning. And like I know by any means everything. Like I've got the information. It's just what I happen to believe in the moment. So I shared, for example, I shared a clip from a recent Joe Rogan podcast about homelessness in LA, and he had a very conservative guest named Ben Shapiro on. Way more conservative than I am, but I like find his ideas interesting. So I shared that clip. A lot of people were not happy about it, but one person left a very intelligent comment of something that like I'm going to learn about now. And he was like, well, this way they phrase why homelessness is so bad is a little bit inaccurate to the extent that they don't talk about in California, we have Prop 13, which has to do with like the homeowner tax rates. So for example, and I have to research this, I haven't done enough of my own research, but this is how he explained it. If you bought a house like 50 years ago, the rate that you're taxed on applies to the value of the house 50 years ago, not what the house is worth now. Yeah. So there's a discussion like if we need that tax base to grow to take care of certain things in the state, like that part isn't mentioned. So I only reference that. Is that boring?
I'm really bored, but keep going.
Okay.
Well, I find that intriguing. Just tell me, but you're losing me. So
my point really was like, oh, this person like referenced a certain thing. He's like, hey, you should look into this element because they left it out if you want to learn more. Versus like, oh, well, that person on that podcast is an idiot, and you're an idiot.
But they weren't there to that sounded like an offering of like, hey, here's some information I have. Like, here's an offering of something else.
Right.
That's different than what I was saying, which is like a negative comment of coming at somebody. That's letting you know that there's going to be there's no room for real communication. I think Facebook is a complete hellscape. Now
while
I say
we stream on it.
as we're streaming, but here's the thing, because I do think that the reason why is because so much of that exists.
Yeah.
And now it's also like ads and music and streaming. Like it's now everything that it's just like it is constant. Like the real reason that I still utilize Facebook is simply because a lot of my like mom and like basically my family's friends that are like, you know, of a different generation aren't on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason why. Like, I still just like check in, say hi, how are you?
Well, I know I went a little long on that whole spiel, but
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel bad.
No, I did. I mean, I wasn't explaining it in an interesting way.
I just was curious where it was going.
Well, 2 points. One, I appreciated that he actually commented with something like,
totally.
Hey, look into this element. You might change your mind. And I was like, great, thank you. I absolutely will, and I might. But more so, I want to recommend people try that. Listen, you know who the friends are that you want to keep tabs on? You don't unfriend them, you just unfollow them. So you don't see the stuff in your feed you don't want to see. And then when you want to, like, if, you know, I want to see what's going on with your cousins that I like am friendly with now, I'll just pop over and be like, yeah, I wonder what so-and-so is going on these days. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Cute baby pictures. Great. I'm caught up now. And I don't see in my news feed all the stuff that's supposed to incense me.
But even the fact that we call it a news feed is misleading. Like, that's already letting us know and conditioning us of like, oh, this is where we're getting our news.
Yeah. By the way, my dad said he liked my Prop 13 explanation.
I know. As soon as I said I was bored, I was like, oh, gosh, Bob's going to be like, that was not boring. That wasn't, you know.
It is interesting.
No, I know. I meant, I mean, you asked me point blank if I was bored. It was mostly just there wasn't room for a communication. So I was just like, when do you want me to jump in?
Are you a Facebook guy, Tony?
I am on Facebook. I don't post anything. I've really fallen off on that. And it's like kind of, you know, back when like comedy was still a thing. I have other comics.
The good old days.
You see a comic at a show and they're like, hey, Klein, you're still doing it? I'm like, yeah, because I'm not posting every show all the time.
Right.
Which is what I should do. I mean, it's my own.
Well, that's such a big thing with stand-ups is like half of it I feel like people just want to like not brag. Like it's that fine line.
It's braggadocious for
sure. It's a fine line between it is important to like self-promote in a way that like, hey, like this is what I'm doing. I would love for you to check it out. But then it's also like how much of that is just trying to show like, look, I'm doing something, something's going on, you know, which is honestly a little bit why there's certain things I've realized. Like I do miss doing stand-up, but I miss it way less than I thought I was going to. And it's not that I miss the live performance element. That is wonderful. But it's all the little things like that I don't have in the back of my mind stressing me out anymore. Like even at nights when we would want to hang out at the house and I just want to like, be lazy with you and watch TV. And I'm thinking like, I should be in an open mic. I should be networking.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hated that feeling. And now I feel like, thank God I don't have to worry about that. Which I don't have to anyway. But now I have this reset. It's such a like, when Emily came over and hung out with us, we were talking about it. Remember, she too was like, yeah, it's really nice to not have that nagging feeling like I should be out networking somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, for me, I think that like I don't know. I guess maybe it's because I feel like I can read people better, but I feel like I can read the difference between people that are saying things in order to like be seen. That's not for an end goal versus people that are like building their own business, which is like, here's where you can come and see me and like genuinely trying to build a following. Totally. And I also think that it's bizarre to me that we have entered into this space that like anybody who's promoting their work as artists, we like talk shit about them. You know what I mean? Because
it's a combination.
I mean, listen, I love talking shit, but I'm saying I think that that's interesting because so much of this work now is like self-promotion. How are you packaging it? Like you have to be your own everything,
Well, and so you can see when someone's doing it right, So I'll shout out like my buddy Luke Tuma. He's killing it. So he came up with his own like Man on the Street show, and he just has these really funny clips and promoted them really well. And he has like 200,000 followers on his Instagram page. And the show's like not even a year old. I think it's like not even 6 months old. So like when you see one of your peers really do it well, it's awesome. It's just when it feels like someone's kind of blowing smoke to make it look cooler than it is. And the thing is, we've done and been to so many terrible stand-up shows that you can kind of sniff out when it's like BS. You can see sort of like the fluff, and it's like, because it sort of makes everything that's good look a little bit bad at first glance, because everybody's kind of like, oh, is this one of those fluff things again, or is this actually like a cool thing? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But anyway, I forgot to mention before I forget, for those who are listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever, 2 episodes ago, the one with our very funny guest, Emily Browning, I had originally uploaded the wrong file. One of our loyal listeners, I'll just say her name, Wendy. I don't know if she wants her full name on the air. She DM'd me on Instagram and pointed out it was the wrong audio file. I'm very sorry, but it's up there. I fixed it a few days ago. So if you want to go back and hear that great episode with Emily, it's super funny. Just Spotify, Apple. The title is Comedy, COVID, and Civil Rights. The correct audio is there now. So
sweet.
Just technical difficulties. Speaking of doing everything yourselves, right?
I know.
So I upload these right after we record. Sometimes I'm a little tired and I got a little lazy. But anyway, so I have some fun stuff to show you. Unless there's anything else you wanted to.
No, let's keep it moving.
What was that?
Let's keep going.
Okay. So, Tony, can you click that first link? So this is a segment we've done a few times. I'm bringing it back. It's called Cuteness Corner, and it's as silly and simple as it seems. See if you can mute that. Yeah, it's okay. And, Rachel, there's so much nonsense in the world these days. When you find something just nonpartisan in any way, just fun,
but
silly.
That's the other thing. I was like, I feel like right now, even like with the mask debate and everyone's like, why does everything have to be political? Or some people are like, everything is political. And then I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've just kind of hit this place where I'm like, why does everybody feel like they have to talk?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Well, I just feel like now if anybody says...
I know that's ironic because we're on a podcast.
But obviously, I'm meaning more of like when everybody has to have... like the final word all of the time, and
because social media. Seriously, that's what I. That's
well, I mean, I know why. I'm just simply wanting more to like call it to everybody's attention of like, you don't have to comment on everything.
I know. Well,
like you don't have to like do everything.
And what I'll speak for myself. So what I've been working on is remembering when people are commenting, I don't have to like let their comments affect me in any way.
You also don't have to respond to any of them.
Right, exactly. But anyway, this is just a fun. Can you make that full screen? This is just like a fun, silly thing.
It's a painting pig.
Yes. So this is, I think they're calling it Pig Casso. So yeah, check this out. This is just something I thought was,
Inside Edition?
Yeah.
What year is this from?
It's recent. It was.
That's a show that's still on?
I guess apparently.
Is that mute?
Yeah, we should be good.
Oh, nope. Hit it one more time. It's still on mute.
It's okay.
Did I get it?
One more. Go right there.
Yeah.
Hey.
There we go. All right. Yeah. And if you can,
And you can
flip it
see
so they can
why.
see it on the live stream. Look at that.
This painting porker's skills have captured the attention of
Right?
animal
Isn't
lovers
that-
and
Look
themed
at that.
Hold on.
Okay.
with her work selling for thousands of dollars.
Okay, that's absurd.
Picasso has quite the Cinderella story. She was saved from a slaughterhouse by a
Yeesh.
South African animal rescue. The founder of Farm Sanctuary SA said she gave the piglet some items to play with, including a paintbrush, because she knows how intelligent pigs are. But she was blown away
I know,
when
that's
this
a stretch.
pig came up with creations
away,
like
huh?
this.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
so
it
for,
is charming.
Oh yeah, you can kill that video now. Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting to me, it's like that's also just indicative of where we're at. We're like, he does what? What is it?
I know.
Put it on the show. People are gonna like it. It's
Yeah.
a pig who paints. Yeah.
It's just funny that but that's almost back to my point of like, if you market anything the right way, someone will buy it. They probably got some I don't know where you buy how this is. I'm sure it became Instagram famous or something ridiculous, but it's just like, wow, and if the free market, if people want to buy Picasso paintings for thousands of dollars, amen, I guess, right? It's just so funny. It's like, that's where we're at. But
But I just want to know, does he have a series? You know what I mean? That's the thing. Before we're like, this is amazing. I'm like, okay, is there a through line? Does he have a blue series?
It's not just that. It's that, and it's also, this is one of the only kinds of content left that no one can make it political, except maybe PETA or
pig
something.
art?
I'm saying there's not a way to make it left leaning or right leaning.
Well, I don't know. We haven't seen these paintings. You know what I mean?
There's no one from the conservative side that's going to argue that pig painting is a subliminal message to make kids willing to become
Alex,
transgender. Or
I'll
something.
tell you what. Somebody out there is going, challenge accepted. Okay,
Yeah.
and they're going to figure out how. Look at all these. Damn, that pig is more artistic than me.
Yeah. Any other comments? Or?
It's hard justifying eating meat. Oh my!
Well, they did save him or her from a slaughterhouse. So
this is so funny.
So there's one other on Cuteness Corner.
She is so disciplined, not running anywhere at all. Good thoughts, Ray. Good thoughts.
So that was Picasso.
Art is so weird. A 2-year-old paints a smile.
What?
Okay, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, we're not really art people in the. Well, no, you're a painter. Your mom paints, and you kind of paint a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking today because I'm a COVID bride, and but I was thinking about messaging my mom. Yes, my mom has a shout out to painter. She has an art studio in Cleveland, Ohio, that she opens up as a community space. And it's free to go there and paint. And the idea is just, she's got this cute little phrase that I'm going to mess up, but it's something like you just give back by donating your time or supplies or something. But she's got a cute little,
sure,
Rachel LaForce phrase. But I was going to message her and be like, hey, can you bring a bunch of paints and canvas to the wedding? And that way we can just leave them out. And if somebody wants a little bit of alone time because we're all together, they can just go out by the pool and,
I will give your mom a lot of credit that we you and I talk at length at home about how absurd it is how much the billionaire class has, and how despite your political views, we're sort of heading towards, in a way, a socialist dystopia, in a sense that the gap is just growing so much so fast. We're gonna have to figure out some sort of.
Well, that's why I don't understand why, and I don't know enough about this.
Well, hold on. Let me finish my thought real quick. So I'm only simply saying that I hope that we see more things like your mom that's look, I'm just trying to give people a little chance to have an outlet of some kind. So I'm donating this space as a creative community space. If you can help keep it alive, that's awesome. If you can't, I get it. Do what you can. I hope that we see more and more of that, because we're going to need more of that for us to get through.
Well, I think, yes. So I balance and kind of am in a position of redefining my relationship to money, because my dad grew up in a family where I mean, they were well taken care of, but he didn't like come from a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like he worked on a farm, like all this stuff. And so that's kind of like, you window shop until like you find the thing, whatever. But there wasn't a ton of discussion in our house about like money or generating money, right? It's also just a different generation.
Yeah.
Like you graduate college if you win and you got a job and you stay there more or less until you retire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then with my mom is the opposite, which was my mom is like very much a humanitarian of like whatever you have, like give it away. Somebody else could use it,
So, yeah.
And so
You're a little like that.
yeah, because that's who like taught me everything I know. And so many of those things are wonderful, but it's also like, I think it plays into what I used to struggle with a lot, which is like, if somebody needed your expertise for something, then I would just like give it away. But then it is this balance of like, well, when do you charge for a service?
You've taught me a lot about that
Like
too.
if it's not a traditional, oh my God, I'm so excited to see this. Like
Next segment
if it's not a traditional service,
Right.
meaning like plumbing or like something where somebody comes to your house, they do a thing, and then you're paid. Or like there's an outcome. Somebody comes and they paint your house. It's a new color now, so you paint that or you
Right.
pay them. So I struggle with that because then the other side of it is now everybody wants to monetize everything.
Yeah.
Like Instagram is flooded with like business coaches. Learn how to monetize your skills in 14 hours and 17 seconds. Like it's just too much.
Well, I struggle with that a bit in the sense that like, now from working here and doing all this, I know a lot about podcast producing and audio engineering and video editing and stuff. And so like a lot of people hit me up and like, hey, I'm trying to get my podcast going. Like, can you give me some tips? And it's that fine line. It's like, well, it's my buddy or like someone I'm friendly with. I'm not going to charge them just to have a conversation. But I'm starting, like, I do want to make that a point where like if somebody wants to make me like a consultant, like I should get paid for my expertise at some point. So I get you. Like I'm trying to figure that out too.
But yeah, so I admire,
especially now with the economy. Like,
but that's what I mean, where it's like this. And I know that you're Mr. like free market. And while obviously I know that so many things of like capitalism are great because they create initiative, et cetera. But it's also, I don't know, like I've just kind of hit this place too where I'm like, and this was the part where I was going to say, I don't know enough about it to totally speak to it. So I'll just kind of throw this, like loft this part out there, which is like, so many people are so averse to this idea of socialism and like anything that seems like universal healthcare or anything like that. They're like socialism. And it's like, first of all, why are you so angry about this?
Well,
number one, wait, but it's also like, you guys realize if you keep voting in opposition of yourself, like this is only going to keep happening. And if you keep spending your money at big box places, like this is just going to keep happening.
Right.
Like we're having debates and conversations about whether working class people should get an additional $600 a week to survive rather than going, wait, why are people like making more money on unemployment than they would be like by like working their jobs? This is really unsettling.
So a few comments on that. First of all, I think there's this issue is that there's a lot of things we need to fix about the way capitalism functions in the United States. And I think my take is socialism is an idealistic like way to govern that is completely impractical, but there's a few elements of it you could apply to a capitalist society. Capitalism is the most practical way for society to function like the most effectively, but it's gone unchecked and it's out of control, which is why we have this mega billionaire class. But the thing is, like a fact is that no socialist country in the world has ever been like the real leader of like innovation or like having like a strong middle class or like inventing things. It's not a system that
I know, but you know what's interesting is they're also claimed to be the happiest people.
Where are you basing that on? Because there's plenty of socialist countries that are definitely not that.
Well, sir, okay, slow down. Again, people are really angry about it, like you.
I'm not angry.
You
I just
clearly are very angry about it. But no,
prove
like, really stand up. Yeah, like Denmark and all of like Holland is like there are some of their places that are known for like they've been like quoted as being like the happy. Now again, who did you poll or whatever.
So those are examples of capitalist countries with socialist programs.
Right, which is what I'm saying. Like, that's why I don't know why people are so against it, because that's the place we're going to end up hitting if we don't raise unemployment. Or not unemployment, if we don't raise wages.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I certainly think there are probably elements from those countries we should try and apply to the U.S., but it's not an exact comparison because those countries are way more homogenous and smaller.
Sure. I understand all that. I'm simply saying that the system we have right now is broken and is not working. And so what I'm noticing, kind of going back to your thing about Facebook posts, is like all that's happening now is everybody in the middle of the gauntlets fighting each other.
Right.
When it's like, that's not the person that you should be arguing with. And like, I've even found that in myself, if I like get triggered about something and then I'm like, this is not the conversation for me because this conversation doesn't fix anything. And, and to your point, which is all about Alex, right? Of like, we have outgrown. There was like a Noam Chomsky quote that I think I took a screenshot of when I stayed up too late the other night and my brain starts to wander.
Well, can I say what I think my biggest aggravation is with where we're at now is that someone like myself who is, I believe that we need to be a capitalist country that adopts some socialist programs and we find the most healthy way to like implement them. But the media that is way more far right than I would ever identify with tries to convince people like me that no, that's the start and it all falls apart from there. If 1 inch and it's all going to go. And I'm like, all right, shut up, dude. No, that's ridiculous. And then on the other end, I think what happens is there are people who are more left leaning than myself that I could meet in the middle with, but then their like loudest fringe voices are like, no, it's not enough. You got to take it all or you're never going to get what you need. And it's like most people want to have the same quality of life that they have now and just like be a little like have things a little bit more fair, a little bit better for everybody. But we've just so polarized everything and we give too much attention to the people that scream.
But there's also a choice.
Well,
right?
Which is why I started unfollowing so many people on Facebook.
Great. I think that's great. But it's also, this was this Noam quote that, again, I was up way too late at night and I took a screenshot of. The smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum, even encourage the more critical and dissident views. That gives people the sense that there's free thinking going on, when all the time the presumptions of the system are being reinforced by the limits put on the range of the debate.
Interesting.
So to me, basically what that goes back to is this two-party system. Again, everybody who's screaming like that, like Biden is going, well, actually, I haven't heard anybody screaming that Biden's going to fix it. I think everybody has resolved the fact of like, okay, you're here. But
yeah, right, exactly.
But this idea that like that the left is going to totally fix it. Now, that might be true of in like smaller communities when you're voting for like your city council, for those folks, those people on a liberal side, if you're looking for more like socially liberal things, those people are probably really who you need to be paying attention to. And similarly, if you, I don't swing this way, baby, but if you're more conservative and you are concerned with why the things that scare you.
Well, what do you think? These terms, I feel like there's so many nuanced definitions of each, because like that's a thing that I get a little bit, and I don't identify as a conservative at all. But there are certainly elements of fiscal conservatism and other things with conservative leaning views that I hear. And I'm like, well, that particular point I actually do agree with quite strongly. So I'm curious, like when someone says they're conservative, what do you think that means?
I think it just depends on what is the conservative that I'm speaking to.
Well,
because then I'm going to frame it in different ways.
Because you were just like, conservative, I don't swing that way, baby. But like, so like what?
Well, I'm not conservative at all. So anybody who identifies as conservative, you and I are going to be sitting on different sides of the fence, regardless. But certainly, and that was something that I think became popular when Bush was reelected, which was the whole idea of like, I'm fiscally conservative. I know it wasn't like, wasn't created then, but it was the first time or second time that I was voting. So I really remember hearing it, which is, I'm not conservative, but I'm fiscally conservative and I'm socially liberal. Right.
Yeah.
which is what is going back to this quote, which is we've defined this system that's here or here, right? So you can have a debate in here, but then going, yeah, but why don't we just go here? Like,
Well,
why is nobody? But also, that's what goes back to it being so scary, because the reason we can't just go this way, and I'm also not saying that that's going to fix it. I'm going to keep going back to, and I will say this a million times till I'm blue in the face. This country's too big. There's way too many of us. Like, some people have a lot of money, some people don't. Some people are first generation immigrants. Like, everyone's needs are so vastly different. When we are all trying to come to one conclusion, a lot of people are going to be disenfranchised one way or the other. It's just the way. It's just a numbers game.
Can I? So I'll give you an idea, or like something I found where I keep catching myself. I'm like, now more than ever with the election coming up and just all these conversations we're having, I'm thinking about like, man, if I had a party that like really like believed in what I believe in, what would I like? What's the thing I would stand for? And I'll give you an example of one that I don't think is conservative or liberal. It's just like something I think is best for our country, right? So we all know. You and I agree, at least, and Tony, I think you would agree, and a lot of listeners would probably agree. The war on drugs has been a huge waste of money. It hasn't done anything to help anybody, and it's just a profit machine for those who were, private prisons, whatnot. I personally think, I don't know if I would say we just legalize all drugs, but I do think if you go to prison or jail, I don't know the exact difference, for a non-violent, that's the key word, non-violent drug offense, or even a non-violent...
Wait, you don't know the difference between jail and prison?
I think prison is like long-term and jail is short-term, right?
Okay, yeah, you nailed it. I got a little nervous. Keep going.
Good job.
Yep.
Well, I assume, but I wasn't positive. Or if you go to prison or jail for something like shoplifting, tax fraud, whatever, I don't think it benefits society to just throw you in a cage and be like, that's it. We should take those folks and be like, okay, you're going to be in prison. You screwed up. You're punished. But you're going to learn some skills. So when you get out of here, you're not going to be a drain on society. You can get back out there and like have something that society needs that you can use as a trade. Because and I know that like more conservative people might be like, oh,
so you can make money and then get more drugs because you have a skill now.
Yeah, basically. No, but I could see some conservatives being like, I don't want my tax dollars paying for felons to learn.
But that's why I think.
I'm just simply saying. But but what they're not seeing though is by doing that, they're eliminating the spike we're going to have in homelessness problems after the fact, that they're going to commit more crimes because they can't get a job. And if we not like someone who murders and rapes, whatever, but like, lower level crimes, get them in serious vocational training and let's help them get work after. So we can stop having to pay this money for all the other crap that comes with it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying there. I mean, if you watch anything on like prison reform and stuff like that, and how much they set them up for failure once they get out of jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have no voting rights. You can't get, student loans. Like you can't own a firearm. Not that they should, but I'm just saying like they strip you from all your rights, and they're like, here's a minimum wage job. Try not to go back to the streets and start doing what you were doing to get in prison in the first place.
I mean, I think about the jobs that I have to work in between the good jobs, and it makes me want to go nuts.
Yeah.
Like, at least I have like copious years of therapy and lots of resources and family to know that like acting out is not an option. I mean, that's the thing where it's like, sure, giving them skills, etc. But I go back to, and I know this is one of the things where people are like, oh, what a woo-woo idea. I'm like, oh, you mean teaching people how to deal with their own emotions? Like, do you want to know why most people are addicts? Like, sure, some people are addicts according to the big book from AA, which is like, this is a disease, etc. A lot of people, like myself included, became dependent or abused things, whether very high functioning or low functioning, simply because life is too painful to deal with at times. And there's a myriad of reasons why people do it. And, folks that either are already predispositioned to poverty and all of those things, like, to them, everybody's already forgotten about them. So what do they have to lose? Yeah. So it's like, talk about giving somebody like, I think about how many people I have to say within a day, I see you, I hear you. And I'll tell you how important it is to me every time I fully express myself to somebody and they say, I hear you, or better, like, I agree, right? Now imagine having never had that opportunity for somebody to look you in the eye and say, you are right. What you believe is important. We see you. We hear you.
Yeah, man. I just think I know one comic. I don't know what the conversation was that led to him telling me this, but he told me we were doing a podcast, and he told me that he has no memory of his dad ever telling him that he loved him or he was proud of him.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, could you
That's crazy. Yeah, my brother on a podcast, huh? That's weird.
I don't know what the conversation was that.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
But yes, I think I will join your party. But yeah, I mean,
so that's a platform that I feel like is because I'm not saying necessarily that like I want to be softer on those crimes. Although I do think decriminalizing drugs is a good move. But like, let's say something like, someone shoplifts or steals a car, right? If there's no violence involved, I really think it's better to put them in a different kind of prison where they learn a skill, man.
Well, I just feel like y'all gonna keep making money on opiates and calling it legal, and then saying there's a war on drugs, and we're gonna just basically incarcerate people at an insane rate, predominantly like Black and brown people at a much higher rate, and or like poor white people, and call it in the name of the war on drugs. Like, dude, eat it. That's just my thing where it's like, I understand where there are certain views that I just do not agree with simply because I just don't, right? Like, I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe that it's her body. That's the thing. It doesn't now. And I totally respect and understand if somebody believes differently from a place of that, their faith, they believe that is a human life, and I believe that there are people who really, really believe that, and it's not about stripping rights from women in order to obtain power, right? So for that, I'm like, we're all here. We're just seeing things differently. When I hear something and you really look at something like the war on drugs and the absolute ridiculous veil that's being presented to us of like, no, we're keeping you safe.
I know.
Like, that's for me where I'm just incensed of like, everybody has to agree this is complete smoke.
I'm going to give you one counterpoint that someone brought up to me. And I don't think it's at least worth considering, right? So a friend of mine who's a comedian, he went to prison for 4 years for drug smuggling and stuff. He was like pretty involved. His take is that the problem, so I still believe if we find a way to decriminalize most drugs, it takes away a lot of power from like cartels and things like that because, the
demand changes.
Right. His point, though, was those organizations aren't just going to like be like, oh, we can't make money now. They're going to start doing other stuff like more kidnappings, more extorting, more ransoms.
Then those are the things. You're actually utilizing your resources as like the FBI or police force to go after things that are actual crimes, crimes, violent crimes.
That's a great point.
I mean, there's still plenty of things. And then it's actually valid. And then you're taking people down for real things rather than keeping all of these people in prisons.
Guys, Rachel's going to run for mayor of Los Angeles.
It's interesting, though, because I never thought about that. But you look at Prohibition with the mob, right?
Right.
When alcohol was legal again, they moved into heroin and dope and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of shifted and got into some cedar. But if you make that legal, then what's the next evolution?
Exactly.
Human trafficking. That's a problem we should fix anyways.
You know what?
Exactly. But that's how I feel where everybody's like, here is one thing that I'll say, and I thought about this earlier when you were talking about when someone's like, yeah, but if you give too much, then this is going to happen. And I really, really, really want to encourage everyone out there, when you are taking in some sort of content, and I don't care if it's left or it's right, I agree with it or I don't, when what is surrounded the argument is fear-mongering. So when you're hearing language like, yeah, but then what? Or if they, or when they, if we, and then there's some sort of like, heavy, like, wizardy like fear that comes along with that statement, disregard that statement. Because first of all, being a human is scary, and everything that we're talking about is scary, and somebody stands to lose. But when you are looking at what is best for everyone on a whole, you shouldn't be looking for what is the best option based off of fear. You're never going to find the right solution. And that's the thing that absolutely boggles my mind of like, we are the most powerful country in the world. And we do have the resources and ability. I'm saying in like,
we're top three at least.
But I'm just saying the patriotic sense of the amount of money, people, and resources that we have as a country, there's no reason why we shouldn't be, I agree, blowing everyone out of the water. The problem is that people who have the power have decided to keep their blinders here rather than here. Like for me, it's like, what's the easiest way to make money? Empower other people to know that they can make money too. That is the quickest way.
That's the whole belief behind entrepreneurship capitalism, which is why I liked Andrew Yang so much. Andrew Yang, I thought, was hitting such an important point between some socialist ideas in a capitalist, entrepreneur-friendly economy. That is what we need to get us back on track.
But it's also where it's like all of those things, and why I think you were really attracted to that as well, is it creates balance. And that's the thing right now with this polarization is, of course, we're going to continue to sit in a society where people are really angry. We are breeding more and more anger. We're breeding more and more like stifled, like tense people. And you can feel it when you go around outside and it's not like, well, people want to be able to go outside. They're just tired. Yeah, there's part of that. But when we are inundated with this all day, every day, all of the time, like, I know it sounds woo-woo, but I want everybody to just stop for a second and like tune into your body. Like, this is very real. This is what we're living under and what we're taking in every single day. Like, that will affect you long term, when it's like, if we could all just be like, hey, you know what? I don't really totally agree with that, but I feel like it's for the better of everybody, so I'm okay with that.
Well,
like, okay. Like, I just...
Well, first, I want to read this comment super quick back on the drugs thing. My dad says, great Netflix series right now called The Business of Drugs, and the host is an ex-CIA analyst who looks exactly like Rachel.
She does look like Rachel.
Oh, really?
We'll have to check it out. All right, Dad, we'll watch it.
And then there's also Fear City that's on Netflix right
saw
now.
that. Did you guys watch that?
I haven't watched it
What's
yet.
it about? Tony,
It's about New York mob running basically running the 60s and 70s and 80s, like just taking over the town. And that's interesting too, because you think about the mob and you think about, they'd fill off the truck and then like, booze and all kind of stuff. But like they had their hands in pockets of every major, skyscraper built in in New York during the 70s and 80s. And stuff. So if you got concrete, you had to pay one of their guys and stuff. So like it kind of gives you an idea on how they work the system. But the business of drugs, like your dad said, that's another interesting one, because she breaks down the Bizarro World version of Rachel, breaks down how they make money off this, and also, and I was wondering why you brought that up, because it backs up what you're saying as far as how much money we waste on the war of drugs. It's ridiculous, and how many lives are wasted because of that, just for the fact of the cartels trying to get territory over one another.
Well, and the other thing is like, and this is like, I know a lot of people will be like, that's a whacked out idea. Take it with a grain of salt. It's also like, just who do we decide is our enemy? We've just decided that the mob or whoever, these like underground cartels, like they're our enemy because they're doing this bad thing, or like they have hands in everybody's pockets, right? Wait.
Okay.
But it's also like, okay, but that same concept, I'm not saying that like the billionaire class is like violent. That's not what I'm saying. But this concept of like the reason why the mob or these things that we can't see are scary is because we don't know how big the web is. And so it's just like reminding people of like, that's the same thing that's going on right now with how much our corporations and government are like connected. So it's like to break down any of those systems, like that's when people are like, I'm going to vote left. No, I vote right, or whatever. It's like, dog, it doesn't matter where you're voting. You have to understand that like what's above us right now is like ironclad.
What I just like you.
This is like the corporations and government of like feeding into each other.
It's almost like the Illuminati diamond.
Oh,
right?
no, I'm not. This isn't like a secret. What if you guys learn that I'm in the Illuminati?
We would have a much nicer apartment if you I would be so mad. I'm like, we're sharing a car. We live in this dumpy apartment's fine. But like, I was like, you're in the Illuminati and this is our lifestyle, Rachel.
I know. What would I be doing with all my secret money?
Anyway, you don't get access until you get married. So.
That's true. So
could you imagine? We'd be so close to being millionaires.
2 quick points on that.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, just to be super duper clear, I get what you're saying about who's our enemy, but like cartels torture and murder people. Like,
no, I know. That's why I said just let me finish.
Yeah. But I want to make a prediction about what we're going to see coming in the fall. So obviously we all know about like speakeasies during Prohibition and stuff. I think we're going to see a big uptick in speakeasy. Like I was talking with a friend this morning, and they canceled Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios. So you can't, because for all the different reasons, etc. And he was like, "Man, I don't know. I'd be kind of cool if you could like rent some like sick Airbnb in a remote spot and make it your own haunted house." And I was like, "Dude, people are totally going to do that. We're going to have this huge swing of secret club." Dance parties.
How funny is that? That's where your mind goes. As Rachel was saying earlier, you're like, yeah, he's a kid who's making haunted houses in his forest in the backyard. And you're like, your Airbnb fall scheme is like, yeah, I'm gonna do private.
I know. I'm just picturing there's going to be all these like speakeasy parties of people do, so
like a desert rave, and you have to get like.
Yeah.
I will say for the meat where I'm like always such a hater on things that are like elite, because I'm like, okay, yeah, it's elite until everybody knows about it, and then like it's not so elite anymore. But there were a few speakeasies, I'm sure they still exist, in Chicago, and that was like my favorite thing.
But a speakeasy now is just like a cool entrance. It's still a bar. It's just not. It's a
yeah, but no, there was one that was like a legit
You had to like know people to get in.
Yeah. And my one buddy was like a member there, and so I got to go, and that was like super cool. And it was when I was still a smoker, and you could smoke inside, so like I was in heaven.
Well, that concept is only lame when it's like it's when it's just you have to be cool, like an influencer to get in. Then it's shitty. But like, you know, when I was in Boston, there were times where like the bar would close, but the bartender would let me and like the comics hang out, and that was basically a speakeasy in the sense of like, oh, only our group gets to be here. Like that's a cool version of it. It's just that when it's co-opted to be like you have to be popular, then it's like, oh, get out of here, you know?
Do you know that I found out, which I'm sure people who are cooler than me already knew this, but I just found out. So, you know, like Soho House or any of these like exclusive social clubs, apparently there's one here in LA that's all for within the wellness community.
What's it called?
I don't remember.
Can you get in?
No, are you kidding me with my 2,000 followers? Yeah. I don't think so.
Well, we got to wrap up soon. I know.
All right.
There were so many things we didn't get to, but I want to end on this one more super fun, cute thing.
Okay.
So I found this just because, you know, there's enough crazy news. I did 2 things for cuteness this week.
Oh!
So you can read that.
Huge black bear spotted relaxing in a pool is one big summer mood.
Could you imagine?
A woman in Virginia was delighted when a large black bear decided to take a nap in her kiddie pool that she had in her backyard. Regina Keller, no stranger to bears, has been taking pictures of the wildlife in her backyard for 12 years. Her home is remote and backs up to the George Washington National Forest in Fort Valley, Virginia. So she's used a variety of furry visitors, including deer, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that is so funny.
Yeah,
so she just like looks
play
outside.
On this video. Yeah. So she just looks out her window, and there's just a bear. I guess she had a kiddie pool.
Oh.
Black bear sees it and he's like, yeah, man, I want to cool off. And he just, I mean, if it wasn't like a bear, it'd be more adorable. But it is pretty cute.
A big bear too.
I know, right?
Small black bear.
Yeah. Oof.
Oh my gosh! Look at him go.
It's so cute.
Did you guys see the hikers in Mexico?
No, what happened?
No.
Well, remember we watched the video that we thought was Romania or whatever with the bear.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Well, like a week later, similar thing. There's like a couple hikers and the little black bear was like a cub, wasn't as big as this one. Comes over and starts like scratching like the chick's leg, and then she ends up taking her phone out and does a selfie with him.
Oh no.
Like, yeah, it was completely different because the same thing as the selfie one we had a couple weeks ago, but this one, the bear wanted the selfie.
That's so funny,
dude.
I don't
hilarious.
know what I would do if a baby bear was scratching at my leg. Maybe call my mom and say I love you. I feel like I would not think that.
I mean, a baby bear is still pretty big.
Yeah, I know. That's my point.
Oh, call your mom.
Not call my mom like, oh my God, Mom, I'm with this bear.
Oh, I thought you meant like.
No, I meant like I might not be coming home.
I was imagining you like FaceTiming your mom and like having her meet the. Oh, that's so funny.
Like, hey, Mom, got a second? Because this might be my last.
Well, it's 6:35.
That is so funny.
I feel like this episode we just plowed. There were so many things I was gonna pull up, but that's okay. We didn't need
Well,
to.
I know, but I wanted this for us to have this, you know, because we're going to be doing more and more guests.
Yeah.
So that is the new direction of House Rules. So, you know, you guys, we ask you, what do you like? What are you into? And you've let us know that you guys are really digging having an additional voice outside of the two of us and Tony here to chime in. So we're going to keep, if you guys know of somebody, either they don't necessarily have to be in the LA area. So somebody who...
we could Skype them in.
Yeah, they can always Skype in, they can Zoom, but looking for somebody either, you know, that's a business owner during this time. That's an interesting take of what that is like. Anybody within the political sector, I don't know, that's looking to do a comedian's podcast.
Both sides. I would love to interview any active police that are on the ground now and any activists who are, you know, Black Lives Matter, defund the police, anything in that world. I would love to have them give their firsthand experience and perspective because there's just so much going on, and I would love to hear from folks on the ground. Any, like you said, any business owners that are things, and not just in the world now, and any, you know, other interesting people that we'd love to have on and just chat with. Cause
yeah, we're gonna also, obviously, this still is a comedy podcast, although this year you might have thought otherwise. Stay tuned. We are gonna keep having some of our close comedian friends, other podcasters. So we'll have some lighter stuff to talk about, but I think it's also important just to keep talking about what's going on in the world, which is totally counter to the last thing I said, which was why does everybody have to think they have a voice? But you know what I mean? I'm not perfect.
Any homework for the weekend?
Well, I was going to say, I think I'm going to watch Fear City.
Oh, you guys have homework.
Fear City and the Business of Drugs.
Yeah. I think that's what we're going to be doing.
I think that's it. I know you've got some other stuff in the works, but we don't want to announce it yet, right? Your new project?
Oh, I'll go ahead and put it out there.
Yeah.
So, I obviously, in light of COVID and needing to pivot, I had some TV projects in the works that are now just in the works. So in light of trying to figure out what to do, I kind of sat with myself and I was like, what are dreams I've always had but have not had a reason to do it? And in another life, I just ate baguettes and walked around London and sold flowers. So I decided that a flower cart would be something that I would love to do. It has low overhead, low commitment, but has like maximum joy and is something that I really love to do. We always have fresh flowers in our house. So I'm calling it Marjorie and Metzel after my two grandmothers to kind of honor them and all of the joy that they've brought to my life. So we've got a buddy of ours that is going to be building me kind of a customized flower cart. And I'll probably be going out first on Saturdays and Sundays, kind of feeling it out. So sometimes maybe over in Atwater Village, Venice Beach, maybe Santa Monica. So I'm going to kind of feel out Larchmont Village. I'm going to kind of check out a couple different places and see what works. And I will be out there selling full blooms, which will be a full bouquet, and then a petite bouquet. So that'll be a halfie.
But I know we're also going to start, and we're going to mention this a couple as we keep growing it and talking about it, because I think people will like hearing about, us. This is more your thing, but I'm going to support you in it and, help out on the side. Building a new little side business because we had to pivot, figure out what do you like doing, what skills do we have, how can we find a new way to bring in an additional source of income during this time. So one thing that we were thinking about, which also maybe you are like, I don't really care about flowers, but it's a cool idea. Maybe you have a friend or a spouse or someone in that world who, they're working from home or they just need something in this time to spruce up their home office, or you just want to say, hey, I love you or whatever. We're going to do deliveries too in the LA area, outside of LA, sorry. But, in the general LA area, let's say you have like your, wife is working at home all day and kind of it's boring, right? Well, we're gonna do online, like on Instagram, promoting all the different options, and we'll come right to your house safely, with COVID protocols, deliver them, and just cool things to try and like make sheltering at place more enjoyable.
Yeah, so once a week I will make the bouquet for that week, and then I'll post it, and so you'll know what it looks like, and if it brings you joy and you love it, or you want to support us, because obviously Marjorie and Metzel profits go directly into Skewed Orbit. So if it's something that you decide that you just want to support, please do, and I'll probably do 25 bouquets a week. That'll be hand delivered. So we're gonna start there, and we'll see as we grow. But I'm really excited because also it's really nice to have a side hustle that is not about anything other than like
flowers,
beauty and joy, because everything else I do is very competitive and fueled with verbal expression. So it's nice to be taking on something that's just about beauty in the outdoors.
So guys, that's it for this episode. You can always find me at Alex Gatlin.
I'm at Rachel LaForce.
We're at House Rules Pod, and also at Skewed Orbit. Skewed Orbit's our production company, so all of our content for all of our different projects goes there. And of course, our engineer, Tony.
Yeah.
Anything you want to mention? Or
I'm going to do a Zoom show in like 10 minutes.
Uh-oh. Where can we find you online?
At Tony Klein Comedian.
Check him out.
All right, guys, we will see you next week.